I never thought I'd wake up on a Saturday, stretch out, sip my coffee, and stumble smack into one of the wildest, most ridiculous HOA battles my neighborhood's ever seen. But there I was, not a care in the world, standing in my driveway, when this woman, and not just any woman, but the infamous Karen everyone whispered about, comes barreling up to my garage like she's some kind of sheriff in a suburbia showdown. Let me tell you, I knew right away my weekend plans were shot to pieces. I mean, this wasn't your average neighborly spat over trash bins or a noisy party. Nope. She came to tow my truck from inside my garage. Yeah, you heard that right. Not from the street, not from the driveway, but literally from inside the four walls of my own property, where I parked the truck I spent months restoring. I blinked. For a second, I wondered if I was dreaming or maybe losing it. But no, there she was, standing there, phone glued to her ear, waving her arms around like she was conducting an orchestra. Except the only music was her yelling about unauthorized parking and HOA violations. Meanwhile, her tow truck sat there, engine grumbling like it knew it was up to no good. My chest tightened up so fast I nearly spilled my coffee. She actually believed she had the authority to take my property, just like that. The garage door creaked open, and I could hear that tow truck engine roaring, getting ready for action, like it was daring me to step in. My brain short-circuited. Do I stop them? Do I call the cops? Neighbors were peeking out through blinds, faces glued to windows. Everyone caught in this weird standoff. Nobody sure if things were about to explode or just fizzle out. But you could feel it. Everybody knew this was more than just a normal neighborly disagreement. Next thing I knew, Karen's got papers in her hand, pointing at my truck like it's a wanted fugitive. Suddenly, she's climbing into the tow truck, telling the driver to hook it up. Inside my garage, mind you. I felt this wave of anger and anxiety just crash over me. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911 with shaking hands, and tried to explain to the operator. Yes, there's a woman from the HOA trying to tow my truck from my garage. Even as I said it, I couldn't believe it. The dispatcher told me to stay calm, keep my distance, but calm was not on the menu that morning. I peeked around the corner. Karen was screaming, at me, at the tow truck driver, at whoever would listen. Her voice just sliced through the morning air, shrill and furious. Then, right when I thought things were about to go completely off the rails, the tow driver did something I did not expect. He got out, shook his head, pulled out his own phone, and made a call. He was calling the cops on her. That's when Karen froze, just for a second. You could see the gears grinding in her head, realizing she wasn't the only one who could dial 911. I stood there, barely breathing, while the tension in the driveway just sizzled. I kept thinking, how in the world did we end up here? I mean, how does a Saturday morning turn into a scene straight out of some reality TV show, with a woman trying to tow a truck out of a locked garage? But it wasn't over, not by a long shot. Karen started pacing like a thundercloud, barking orders at the driver, revving up that engine again, ready to make her move. But this time, the driver didn't budge. He was done. That's when I realized, hey, maybe the tide's finally turning. It was a silent battle now, my rights, her power trip, and a tow truck guy stuck in the middle, probably wishing he'd called in sick. Every move Karen made, every word she barked, just cranked the tension up higher. In that moment, I saw it for what it was. This wasn't about a parking violation, not really. It was about control, power, someone desperate to flex authority they didn't have. The cops were on their way, sirens still a few minutes out, but it felt like hours. I started filming everything, hoping it would help if this ever went to court. And Karen? She was like a wind-up toy on the edge of breaking, pacing, yelling, eyes darting from me to the tow driver. The neighbors were still glued to their windows, some out on the porch now, phones up, recording every minute. You know how these things spread. By that afternoon, half the county was probably watching the video. Karen spun on the tow driver, voice trembling with outrage. You think you can just ignore me? I have HOA authority. She stormed at me, waving those papers like a sword. I stepped back so fast I nearly tripped over a rake. The driver held up his phone defensively, muttering, clearly done with this circus. Karen was scanning us both, eyes wild, looking for a weak spot. Then, just when I thought it couldn't get any crazier, she leaned into my garage, trying to latch that tow hook onto my truck, screaming at me to get out of her way. I froze. Part of me wanted to stop her. The other part knew better than to get physical. I yelled, "Stop! You can't do this." But to her, I was just background noise. She was on her own private power trip. Neighbors were now fully out in the street. Some whispering, some filming, some just watching like it was the best live entertainment they'd seen in years. And the tow driver? He shook his head, probably calling the cops for backup, refusing to lay a finger on my truck. That seemed to throw Karen off for a second. Her confidence wobbled, then came back even stronger. She spun back to me. "You're breaking the rules. I'm here to enforce them. You have no right." She was obsessed. This wasn't about HOA bylaws. It was about her needing to win. My garage, my truck, my peace and quiet, all turned into her battleground. And then came a twist. She pulled a tiny camera out of her purse, like she was going to document me and make me the villain in her story. She pointed it in my face, snapping photos, probably dreaming up some wild HOA newsletter headline. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just power, it was humiliation. Then the sound of sirens cut through the noise, getting closer fast. Karen started moving quicker, frantic, lunging for my truck again, but this time the tow driver physically blocked her. "Ma'am, you need to stop. Police are on their way," he said, calm as a rock. She went ballistic, yelling at him, yelling at me, insisting she had the ultimate authority, as if yelling louder made it more true. That's when the real showdown started. She tried to yank open the tow truck door, as if she could force the driver to obey. I just stood there, mouth hanging open, shouting at her to stop. The neighbors joined in, telling her to back off, some siding with me, a few just shaking their heads in disbelief. She kept bouncing between us, her energy never flagging, relentless and just, honestly, unhinged. Finally, a police cruiser rolled up, lights flashing. She froze mid-scream, the color draining from her face. The tow driver took a big step back, phone still clutched tight. Karen tried to rally, tried to explain, to justify, to act like she was the victim. But the officers weren't buying it. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle," the lead cop said, voice flat as concrete. Karen tried to play it cool, pretending she was just enforcing the rules, but the cops could see through it. They asked to see her paperwork. She pulled out this mess of notes, handwritten, photocopies, stuff with the dates all jumbled up. It looked like she'd emptied her junk drawer and called it evidence. That's when one officer hit her with the question of the year. "Did you actually authorize this tow?" Karen froze, lips trembling, eyes darting. I thought the HOA could," she stammered. But the officer shook his head. "No, only the owner of the vehicle or a court order can authorize a tow from private property." Right then, the air just changed. My chest loosened up for the first time all day. The law was clear, and everyone, Karen included, finally heard it. Her confidence broke like a dam. She started shouting at the neighbors, trying to spin the story, pinning blame on me, but nobody was buying it. Phones had caught everything, and even the folks who'd just peeked out at first were now watching wide-eyed, muttering to each other. Then came the kicker. The officer asked her, "Why are you doing this? Why risk so much over a truck in a garage?" For a split second, all that crazy bravado faded. She blurted out, barely above a whisper, "I just needed to show them I have power, that I can enforce the rules." And there it was, the truth, raw and ugly. It was never about my truck, never about the rules. It was about ego, about control, about proving to herself, and everyone else, that she mattered. The cops laid it out. She couldn't tow my truck, couldn't threaten or harass me. And if she tried anything else, she'd be in real legal trouble. Karen just stood there, face flickering between fury and humiliation. Then, with one last glare, she stomped back to her house. The tow driver gave me a nod like, "Man, I'm glad that's over." And my neighbors, some actually clapped. I felt my knees wobble, heart pounding, but a deep wave of relief washed through me. As I closed the garage door, the absurdity of it all finally hit me. I mean, who tries to tow a truck from someone's garage? The neighborhood slowly went back to normal, but you better believe folks will be telling the story of the day Karen tried to tow a truck for years to come. And yeah, part of me wondered if this was really the end, if she'd pop up again, even wilder than before. But in that moment, I just felt satisfaction, pure, exhausted satisfaction. The law, the truth, and a little stubbornness had won out. If you ask me, that's how you deal with people who crave power more than logic, more than fairness, more than reason itself. When you stand your ground, stay calm, and let the facts speak, even the wildest HOA Karen has to face reality. I learned something big that day. Real courage isn't about yelling or getting physical. It's about holding steady when everything around you goes off the rails. My truck, my garage, and my sanity survived the test. If you've ever had to deal with someone like that, drop your own story in the comments. Seriously, I want to know, where do you draw the line between standing up for yourself and letting things slide? Do you think the HOA should ever have that kind of power? Smash subscribe if you want more wild justice like this. And don't forget to hit the bell, because trust me, the next story is going to be even crazier. See you there.